just the first light, but the first 5 pages.
I'm gonna wear my mask.
Yep, please.
Good evening. I hereby announce that pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the notice which was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall, and filed in the Township Clerk's office on January 6th, 2021. Mayor Bontempo?
Here.
Ms. Weber?
Here.
Mr. Critelli?
Here.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Here.
Mr. Santana?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence on our troops both home and abroad who work tirelessly to protect us each and every day. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Holmdel Township Committee meeting, Tuesday, August 10, 2021. The first item on the agenda is a proclamation, correct, Wendy?
That's correct.
For International Overdose Awareness Day. I'd like to read it into the record. Whereas the Township of Homedale does affirm and acknowledge the harm and hardship caused by overdose, and whereas the Township of Homedale recognizes the purpose of International Overdose Awareness Day as remembering loved ones lost to overdose and ending the stigma of drug-related deaths. And whereas the governing body of the Township of Homedale has declared the Township of Homedale a stigma-free community, and whereas local resources are available so no one needs to suffer alone or feel hopeless, and whereas the Holmdel Township Alliance for the Prevention of Drug and Alcohol Abuse exists to meet the needs for a comprehensive, coordinated substance abuse program, and whereas the Township of Homedale resolves to play our part in reducing the toll of overdoses in our community, which claim the lives of more than 150 Monmouth County residents in 2020 alone, together with countless more affected forever. Whereas we affirm the people affected by overdose are our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers, our brothers and sisters, deserving our love, compassion, and support. Now, therefore, I, Gregory Bontempo, Mayor of Holmdel Township, along with the Holmdel Township Committee, do hereby proclaim August 31st, 2021 as International Overdose Awareness Day, Township of Holmdel, and do commend this observation for our citizens dated the 10th of August 2021. Approval of minutes from the May 25th, 2021 Executive and Public, June 15, 2021 Executive and Public, and June 22nd, 2020 Executive and Public. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Critelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
The minutes have been successfully approved. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So for agenda items on tonight's agenda, open for any public comment on agenda items on tonight's agenda. Yes, sir. Just please, members, state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Anthony Pasillo, Second Lieutenant, Homedale First Aid. Address is 109 Alfred Lane in Aberdeen. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. On behalf of Homedale First Aid, with Chris being out on vacation, they do authorize me to speak on their behalf tonight. I want to speak in reference to agenda item, or ordinance item 2021-32, and the adoption of the bond. And what it really comes down to is when we're looking at from a public safety perspective, for the roads, has anybody here that's on the township council ever been back in the ambulance or tried to treat a patient? Okay. I've been doing volunteer EMS for 27 years, and I have to tell you, road improvement projects help us as much as they help the township, as much as they help the patients. We deal with patients throughout the township, throughout multiple townships, and have to go respond to Bayshore Hospital. It is very difficult for us to do our job effectively when we're bouncing all over the back of an ambulance and trying to hold on for ourselves while treating that patient. So whatever we need to do, we can look to pass the ordinance to get the roads improved in town. Additionally, with Bayshore Hospital opening their brand new emergency room this week, it's now going to be a premier location for residents and of Homedale and Monmouth County to attend and to go to for help. We want them to have the best experience getting to that place. I completely understand both sides of the coin here, but truly put yourself in our shoes and bounce around the dock of an ambulance and see what it's like trying to treat a patient. Regarding the $600,000 of public safety related funds for the first aid building, the police locker room, it's not just for a place to hang out. It's not just for a place to have dinner with your family. It's truly for us to be able to work from the building and respond to calls in an accurate manner quickly. Right now, a bunch of us all work from home. We have full-time jobs as well. But we give every aspect of our lives to providing service for this community. All we ask in return is a place where we can work, we can invite members down, we can attract new members to all our buildings, so we can continue to provide the services that we need for our community. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you for speaking, also for all the work that you and your co-workers do every single day helping out the residents of Homedale. It's very much appreciated. First aid, fire, OEM, you guys do an amazing job every day. Thank you. Anybody else, public comment? Get sir. I thought I saw a hand in the back. It's all good.
Hi, I'm Bill Little, 8 Coventry Square, and I wanted to talk about the 2021-33 for the property of the Potter Farm. Just wanted to, it just seemed to come up, hearing or approve the ordinance tonight, hearing in September. It's not a lot of information yet that I've seen, like looking forward to an environmental impact study and everything. But I want to urge you to move carefully and deliberately and not rush through this, because there's a lot of flooding problems down on Palmer Avenue, Berkeley Square, all that kind of stuff. The headwaters for that are Galloping Hill area, what's uphill from Galloping Hill, Potter's Farm. So you could have more impervious surfaces, more runoff. You have the opportunity, not the opportunity, the possibility to make a bad situation worse. So I just urge you to move deliberately, move carefully, don't rush through things. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. I think what makes sense to have our, is it working, Wendy? Is it okay? Have our attorney just kind of encapsulate exactly what is on the agenda this evening for the, it's called actually the Enclave, what you refer to as Potter's Farm. I think it'll help understand exactly where we are tonight, what's being introduced, and kind of what the process is going to be going forward. Councilor?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening to the members of the committee and the public. With respect to the Ordinance 2021-33, which the last commenter referenced, the entity Enclave at Homedale is the fee owner of what was formerly Potter's Farm. They purchased it and they own it outright. And several months ago, they made application to the zoning board for the necessary land use relief in order to construct a memory care facility. Around the same time that they made that application, they also reached out to the township to enter into discussions about entering into a host community agreement where they would provide a financial contribution to the township, recognizing that if they receive the land use approvals that they're applying for and the property became operational, they would be tax exempt and not contributing anything. And they wanted to make this overture to obviously recognize that they would be receiving municipal services such as police, fire, and EMS. So as a result, the township entered into discussions with Enclave and the township, well aware that this is strictly in the context of this host community agreement, and it has no bearing whatsoever on the pending application before the zoning board. If the ordinance is approved, it would be an agreement between Enclave and the township that on the condition that they receive the zoning board approval, they would be agreeing to contribute financially to the township. The zoning board will not have this will have no role before the zoning board, and I've previously spoken with the zoning board attorney to make sure that disclaimers are placed on the record that none of the zoning board members are considering this matter while they consider that application. And as many people are familiar, the zoning board has a much different inquiry than the township committee has when it comes to these kinds of things. They're forced to review things in the context of the municipal land use law to determine if an application satisfies the necessary criteria in order to obtain a variance or whatever land use relief is being requested. And ultimately, that's subject to review in the Superior Court. So, long story short, this approval would simply be that if Enclave were to receive approval, whether it be from the zoning board or Superior Court, they're agreeing to contribute, and the township is saying that they would accept the contributions that are outlined in the agreement. This has nothing to do with the land use approvals. I heard questions from the gentleman earlier about runoff issues. All that will be handled at the zoning board, and all those issues will have to be fully addressed, and the public is certainly able to attend those meetings. Those have not occurred yet and would be occurring in the future on the pending application. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Can I mention the form? Would that be off down? Is okay?
I think it's further.
Okay. So part of the Enclave's application, and as the attorney mentioned, they're a non-for-profit, so technically they don't have to pay anything. They could come in, do their application, and it would be tax exempt for whatever services they pull from the town. What they wanted to do, I think, when they did their contract with the previous owner, they saw what the property looked like. And their concept plan was to keep a working farm around the property. So what happened is you'd have a host community in the center of the property, and around the outside there'd be a barn for supplies and to store the animals, and the animals would still roam around the property. So their concept was to put this plan in place. Now, this is all going in front of the zoning board. I'm not speaking on behalf, encouraging them or discouraging them. It's completely, this is just part of the plan, but they want to kind of fit in with the character of Homedale as it was presented to me. And they also wanted to have the ability for programs of children that are in school and might want to understand farming or work on the farm, that they can do volunteer hours on the farm. So a lot more information is to come on this application. This is not an application for approval. This is just purely a non-for-profit, which is kind of unique because we haven't seen many of these come into Homedale, offer to pay money to offset any services that they'd be taking from the town. So the vote, the ordinance tonight is literally just, as the attorney said, allowing us, if the process went through, for them to pay the town money to offset costs.
And Mayor, just if I can make 2 more points just to kind of clarify everything. One, Enclave is an entity that's affiliated with United Methodist Church. They purchased the property from the Potter's Farm family, and recorded a deed that was in record last year. So the township had no role in selecting any, proposed developer or anything in terms of the chain of title. This entity purchased the property directly and is applying to the zoning board for land use approval, which is their right, and they can do completely independent of contributing at all to the township. And if they receive the necessary approvals, wouldn't pay a dime in any contribution to the town. This is a voluntary gesture on their part. And then secondly, I would note that they filed the zoning board application several months ago, so it's actually been public record that the plans have been out there. So the fact that I understand that since it's on the township committee agenda and that obviously gets reviewed, that they're now it's being picked up by certain people, but it's been pending for a significant amount of time.
Just to note, I don't think it was deemed complete until very recently.
That is true. I mean, the application itself being filed was a public record, but it recently is. Completeness is this month, I believe, and they've been going back and forth with the board engineers, which is standard for an application of this nature. And they'll be before the board this fall, and I'm sure that that it'll require hearings in order for an application of that magnitude to be reviewed.
There was one gentleman in the back. Okay.
Bill Castning, 4 Takalusa Drive. Sorry for the voice here. Anyway, all those ordinances that are up for second approval tonight, or the second reading, I suggest and I strongly support that they should be approved. Some of you know I'm the executive director of Monmouth Conservation Foundation, and we're all about open space preservation. And by approving this ordinance, you aren't approving a tax, you're letting the voters approve and make that decision for you. So I would hope that the vote tonight is unanimous for that particular ordinance, because you're not committing to anything other than letting the voters decide. And I think LoSAP is a great thing, and that should be approved. And I think the bond ordinance that was introduced and is being reintroduced tonight is appropriate to be approved, because it has very necessary things that need to be done. I have no comment on that commission for electing a mayor. We'll see where that goes. Anyway, but I do support that. So I do have a comment. Regarding the enclave, I wonder if there's a little bit of cart before the horse tonight on what's on the agenda to consider, and it may influence the Board of Adjustment to make a decision that they otherwise may not have made. But I'm curious whether if a by right residential subdivision were approved for this site, what would be the revenues that would be generated, and how does that compare to the $95,000 that Enclave is agreeing to pay the town should the Board of Adjustment approve this application? So I'm just curious whether that analysis was done.
I won't get into specific numbers. I will say the township did consult with its financial experts in order to complete the negotiation with Enclave, but I think that if a significant number, if the property were built out to its full potential on a residential basis, I think the tax revenue would be multiples higher than the in lieu contribution that's being proposed.
All right, you've answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. 3 hands went up in the same row.
I've been there. Is this on?
It's on, yeah.
Okay, super. Thank you.
You can lift it too, so you don't have to bend over.
So, second meeting in a row. Exciting.
Name and address, sir.
Sorry. Third, I'll have it ready for the next one. Eric Hines, 3 Skyview, Homedale. First off, I'm remiss that I didn't do this last time. I want to thank all of you. The last 18 months has been taxing. And personally, I built a house through this, and Sharon, I want to thank the entire building department, and please, the response and they really made our job easy. So thank you and the leadership, and Mr. Mayor, your communication was greatly appreciated, especially for, having senior parents in here. So thank you for everything that you did. One of the things on the agenda tonight is certainly the capital budget, and there's not a person in town that wants to see roads not get paved, or all of our EMS and every aspect of first aid and our responders taken care of. I just don't think that's necessarily the narrative, right? So I think it's a false narrative that we can't do both when it comes to also supporting recreation and supporting our children. We've got to be one of the few towns in the state of New Jersey that has $5 million, which we get 95% in the pilot minimum. We're AAA rated in an environment where you're borrowing at 1%. $1.5 million over 20 years is about $80,000 a year. And as opposed to this political football going back and forth and division, which I think we all agree we have enough division in this world. The great thing about sports and recreation is they bring people together. So I'm begging all of you to just maybe consider some sort of compromise. And on behalf of the soccer club, my compromise is this. Ask the user groups to contribute. 50%, 40%, 60%. We don't have the ability to bond, and we don't have, none of us, HY, lacrosse, football, but maybe we have to contribute. Maybe that's the compromise that we can do this, because a turf field is not a crank operation. It's not marijuana. It's a positive for the town. The other day I walked out of Cross Farms and a family that had moved here a few years ago, they little broken English, and they stopped me and they said, Coach Eric, we just want to tell you that our son is going to UPenn. And I said, oh, that's great. That's awesome. You made such an impact on him in 6th grade, coaching him. And that's the great thing, right? And then we've turned this turf field into such a division in our town, and I'm just asking you to come up with a better solution. You know, there are ways to do this, you know? And I hear you that there's got to be a process and a survey, but there's one thing that I know, Mayor. Nobody in the last 15 years has volunteered in athletics more than I have. Not a soul. Football, soccer, basketball, baseball. I've done it, I know. Give me 10 seconds. I know that this would benefit our town. Let's not make it a continual division. If it's about the money, let's figure it out. The school club still looks like Beirut hit it. Right? We can do better than this. We can. We have the money, we have the resources. Let's just come up with a little bit of a compromise. And my last thing is just a favor, Mayor, and I know people are going to come up and curse turf. Just please don't call it AstroTurf, because that went out with the Jetsons in the 70s. It's not AstroTurf, it's artificial turf. That's it. So, thank you.
Well, good, thank you. So, I think that there is a lot of movement from the Recreation Committee that's been meeting thus far. I think the last meeting we got a report about some of the initiatives they want to, they're pursuing. I don't think it's an all or nothing. I do think that I think recreation is being looked at as a whole. I'm not on the Recreation Committee, so I can't comment exactly what they're looking at. But you know, I think that there is enhancements that Homedale could use in terms of recreation across the board, and I think that the Recreation Committee and the volunteering that are on there are certainly trying to get some things accomplished, and I'm hopeful that we can come up with a plan that positively impacts, you know, as many residents as possible in our great community, because we have a great community. And people are very passionate about, you know, one side or the other, but I think you're passionate about, you know, all recreation, and I am very hopeful that that we're going to have we have a lot of work being done behind the scenes. We have some work being done by a firm that's looking at the swim club right now. We should be getting a report in the near future. There could be recreation component bundled in there, so we're trying to do it, because it's at the end of the day, it's taxpayer money. End of the day, it's taxpayer money. We're just trying to be extremely frugal, like a better term, conservative, and appropriately spend it so we get the most we can from the limited funds we have. Well, Miss.
Francine Campus, 2 Country Squire Lane. I'm just up here, I won't take too long, but I just want to say, I don't think anybody's really against recreation, but I'm imploring that all of you pass the capital improvements ordinance tonight, because that is dividing the town. Similar, I agree with a lot of what Mr. Hines just said. Let's not divide the town. Let's not, it's very clear what that ordinance is going to cover. There's a plan there, how the money is going to be spent, so there's no reason not to do it. Let's do the same thing for your turf fields. I personally believe a turf field would have been in the process right now if all the shenanigans hadn't happened over these years trying to get it. And I won't go into the details of what happened. So let's just pass this ordinance, move forward as a united town for all, and I think if you come up with a good plan for recreation and a turf field, everybody will be on board for it, and that'll be the best thing for all of us and the kids. Please don't make it that it's the no turf field, and it's not that. We just want to see that everything is done reasonably in this town for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay, 18 Ladwood Drive. As someone who's been up here 9 times saying what would help get a turf field in town is if some of the private clubs would contribute, particularly one with vast sums of money on its balance sheet. It was very nice to hear Mr. Hines suggest that after I've been mentioning it for 5 years at least. I want to acknowledge the baseball field turfing. We started with the infield, and then it quickly became the outfield, and we were near $1 million. So if we move forward with the turf field with a legitimate contribution from the clubs that can handle it, particularly one, I think we need to be a realist with the actual real cost. Mr. Santana has done some analysis. I think it needs to be respected or refuted. So I hope at some point we can move forward. We can get a real contribution from HYSA. We can get some real numbers out there, and we can get this done in an area where people will be comfortable with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Miss, yeah.
Hi there, Victoria Scottolevino, 8 Hidden Hollow. I sent a letter to you all. I have a copy of it, so I'm not going to read it. I assume it's going to be for public record. Yep. I partially agree with some of the folks. Definitely pass the ordinance for the road pavement. It's critical. I live in an area that was completely forgotten, and it's awful. We spend a lot of money here. We contribute a lot. We have less and less kids going to the school, yet I pay more every year. I'm definitely against the turf fields, and it's in my letter of why. I do believe that the cost that has been estimated is a fraction of what it actually would be, and we're going to continue to, it's like a maintenance of a multi-year budget. I'm not opposed to some of the things that were suggested, very much against a lot of this backdoor stuff that continues to happen. It's not necessary, and I think the public should be part of the decision and have it more of a community as opposed to, as the woman said, divided. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Yes, in the back, please.
Good evening. Good evening. Michael Serbinski, 2 Morris Way. I came tonight because I just recently heard about the budget for the ordinance municipal bond not being passed because of whether it's infrastructure, roads, or adding more to the number for turf. I didn't have time. I tried to go online. I couldn't find anything. I don't know when it was. Not too long ago, our township paid real money for a survey for the residents to once and for all take all the guesswork out for all of you to simply look, here's the survey, here's what the people who pay for it want. Forget about this gentleman wants it, this lady wants it, this guy's done it for 100 years, the other person didn't, this lady's roads aren't fixed. Do a survey, let the residents decide, so you can go to bed at night and not have to think about, did you do the right thing or the wrong thing? Please.
Thank you. We did do that survey you're referring to, 2018? Yeah. Okay, 2018. And I remember when I think it was Fran Mullins from TNM was doing the presentation, I think it was one of the VPs over there, said, based on the number of respondents we got, it's statistically accurate. I remember that the exact words. So we have enough of a sampling of the response from the community, and kind of it was for a guideline for the township committee. That was kind of the overall purpose, to try to get what the residents wanted. And I think some of the things we're doing right now, I know the deputy mayor who's on the phone is liaison to the rec committee. I know she's been working on a bike trail, a bike and path, am I saying it right? Bike trails. And we actually just applied for grant funding for that, to be able to interconnect the schools to our parks, to make it more of a community, so people don't have to get in the car like you do in Homedale. Like I grew up in more of a city environment, right? To get to place and see their friends, and we're very hopeful that that grant gets approval, and we'll also work with the county to connect from the county parks with their Homedale. So we are doing things that were highly sought after on that, for lack of a better term, on that survey. So things are in process. But as you know, government doesn't move at the speed of light, and so things take time, and getting grants to pay for things like that also takes time. So things we're hopeful in the near future to be able to announce, once we're acknowledged for the grant, that we can start some of the work, and I think that'll be one of the areas that I think a lot of people in the town will be able to use, young and old, and get out. And one thing the the pandemic taught us, right, is being able to do things that you maybe weren't doing before. Get out more. We kept our parks open. Our parks were a big portion of what we did. One of the reasons why a big proponent for the open space tax that were put on there for referendum is because our parks are really what kept this community moving and alive. And I had unsolicited calls and emails from doctors who I've never heard of that live in Homedale that said one of the best things we did was leaving our parks open because the mental aspect of this virus could be as bad as the physical aspect of the virus. And you needed to have an outlet for you to go for a walk, go out with your family, go to friends, socially distance, and you never know when it's going to happen again. So I'm a big advocate for parks and recreation, all sorts of open space, and we're working on a lot of things, and that's why this agenda was created this evening to kind of reinforce that. Hopefully the community, as one gentleman said earlier, comes out and supports what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you. And I just hope you see my point of view with the will of the residents as opposed to a handful of people who have a loud voice. And before I forget, thank you for all your communication throughout the pandemic. It was very helpful.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Ron Emma, 32 Ladwood Drive. I stand here as a proponent of turf fields. So just want to put that on the record that I actually am for turf fields. I actually heard Mr. Hines actually come up and with a alternative to participate, to contribute some money towards the turf field. That's movement. That's a positive sign. I refer to the previous gentleman, this survey that you're talking about in 2018, I think turf fields didn't come in the top 15. I think it came in 18th, if I recall, 15th or 18th. So I'd like just to refute Mr. Catelli's recent article that he said 20% of the town was for turf fields. Clearly, there's a vocal minority that speaks out in for turf fields. Again, I am for turf fields. However, I want it to be an open and transparent process. So I would just refute that this for the kids narrative is getting a little old. Let's compromise. We should have money for both. The people want it. Let's get it done, but let's do it in an open and transparent manner. And again, the shenanigans of the past, let's put it behind us and move forward. This budget needs to be passed. We purchased a brand new fire truck, and now we can't outfit it with hoses and ladders and equipment for the fire truck. That's ridiculous. The roads, I don't have to talk about the roads. Everyone knows about the roads. The locker room for the first aid squad, the modifications to the first aid squad, the locker room for the police officers. That should trump this. That's public safety. That should trump recreational needs. This budget needs to be passed. Let's talk about turf fields and get the sports clubs to contribute towards it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public? I'll close public comment, and we'll move to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items 2021-205 through 2021-227. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Catelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes, with a note.
Thank you. Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
So resolutions 2021-205 to 2021-227 have been successfully passed.
Thank you, Wendy. Next is introduction of ordinance, Wendy.
Introduction of ordinance 2021-30, which is an ordinance authorizing an easement swap involving block 25.03, lot 16 on the tax maps of the Township of Homedale. Motion to adopt on the first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for September 14th, 2021.
We have a motion.
Motion. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Catelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
2021 2021-30 will be published in the Asbury Park Press. Thank you. The next introduction of ordinance is 2021-31, which is an ordinance amending Ordinance 4-3 titled Licensing and Regulation of Sales and Construction Trailers. Motion to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for September 14th, 2021.
The motion?
Move. Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Catali?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
2021-31 has been successfully passed on first reading and will be published in the Asbury Park Press. The next ordinance is 2021-32, which is a bond ordinance providing an appropriation for $2,811,000 for the various capital improvements in and by the Township of Homedale in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, and authorizing the issuance of $2,670,450 in bonds or notes of the Township for financing part of the appropriation. Motion to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press for a public hearing, which shall be held at a special meeting for the Township Committee to be scheduled and noticed for August 24th, 2021 at 9 a.m.
Have a motion?
Move.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
I'd like to have a discussion on that ordinance, Mayor, before we open it for the roll call.
Good.
Okay, great. So it seems like everyone in the room has read VJ's and my press release, which I'm glad. And I just want everyone to know, we're not against paving roads, purchasing safety equipment at all. What we're for is we believe we can do it all. And one thing that is not very well communicated is by adding money for a turf field to this capital ordinance, you're not adding debt to the town. You're authorizing the town at a later date, if the Recreation Committee makes it a recommendation to where to put a turf field, the town has the authority then to go out and borrow the money. So I'm glad I did what I did, so I got everyone's attention to this. You're misunderstood if you think that we don't have the money, because we're not borrowing the money tonight. If, for some grace of God, this committee decided to do $4.3 million in a capital ordinance, we don't borrow the money tonight. It's an authorization to go forward down the road, maybe in 2022, maybe in 2023. That's exactly what I had hoped to accomplish. Now, it's nice to hear Mr. Emma and a few others talk about how they support multi-purpose turf fields for this community. There is a minority of young parents that have inundated me for 8 years, 8.5 years. The mayor's been here with me. We've heard it year in and year out. So I'm going to tell you another little secret. This town has collected nearly $8 million in pilot revenue from Bell Works and Toll Brothers over the last 3.5 years. None of that money was shared with the school district or shared with our children. So part of my drive here is to give something back to the kids. We're anticipating another $4 to $5 million next year. So to say we can't afford it, again, is a false narrative. So I'm going to make a motion on this ordinance that if we believe we can do it all, and I heard the mayor say that, I think I heard somebody say that if it wasn't you, Mayor, that we increase this bond ordinance by $1.5 million to include a future appropriation for a multi-purpose turf field. That's my motion.
I'll second your motion.
You want to do a roll call on the motion, Wendy?
Correct.
Mr. Catali?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
I have a comment. So first, I'd like you all to be aware of unspecified bond ordinances. What that is is unspecified because there's no exact number associated with a request, and that essentially tantamounts to a slush fund. The reason why I'm sitting here is because of that, which happened 2 years ago. Unspecified bond ordinances are dangerous because it adds to your debt, and you have no idea how it's going to be spent in the future. I just want to make it very clear again. Unspecified bond ordinances, you as a resident will have no power in how it's being spent later on in life, in the future. So I recommend every resident to pay very, very strong, have an interest in the bond ordinances that are passed, and make sure whatever it's used for, it's specified exactly how it's going to be spent. That's number one. Number two, it is a question of money. It is. I wrote an article about this. I gave you the facts. So, yes, we're going to be bringing in $4 to $5 million in pilot revenue this year. But do you know a couple of things? There are two key things that people are not talking about. One, excuse me. One, the debt. We have a huge debt. We have just converted $20 million to permanent debt, so we had $33 million in short-term debt. What does that mean? That means we only pay interest, no principal. So we don't really know how bad it is until we convert it to permanent debt. So we converted $20 million to permanent debt. So that brought our debt service cost annually to $3.5 million every year. We still have $13 million left, which we plan to convert in February. That's going to add close to another $1 million. So we're going to be looking at $4.5 million of our revenues spent on debt service costs, $4.5 million. Now remember, former Mayor Hines mentioned that we have a AAA rating. There's a cost associated with maintaining that AAA rating. And you know what that cost is? The reserves. You have to keep the reserves proportionate to the debt. If the debt's going up, the reserves have to go up as well. Today the reserves are at $3.5 million. So if the debt goes up, it will go up to $4 million. So what did I just say? $4 million in reserves plus 4.5 to 5 million in debt service costs. So we're looking at $9 million out the door before we've even earned the revenue. You follow me? $9 million gone from our current and future revenues. If you're only getting $5 million in revenue from the pilot, we have to look for $4 million elsewhere. We have two other revenue sources. The first revenue source are our court fees. You know that there's a new law about underage drinking and how we cannot find them anymore? Our revenue from those permits and fees are going to drop. So where do we go for our extra revenue besides our operational budget of $26 million? Taxes. It will impact your taxes. If you start to follow the path of issuing unspecified bonds, it will hurt your taxes. If it's not this year, if it's not next year, it will hurt the year after. So you've got to be very careful. So I basically said the best time to reevaluate our recreational, remember this is the second round of recreational bonding that is being requested. The first round was in 2018. If we want to do that, the best time to do that is after February of 22, because that's when we would have converted the bond. We'll know exactly where we stand in terms of our costs. The bottom line is important, not just looking at the top line. The top line are our revenues. We already know $5 million from the pilot. We're going to lose some revenue in the fees, and the rest of the revenue just comes from taxes. So we have to look at the bottom line, and that the best time to look at that is after February, and that's when we need to reevaluate our recreational costs. Thank you.
Mr. Santana, you need to vote on Committeeman Critelli's motion to amend.
My vote is a no. Thank you.
Ms. Weber, vote on the motion, please.
Kathy, can you hear?
Yes. I would like to make a statement also. I'm not going to address the costs. I think those have been addressed. I'd like to address the children. This township committee and myself personally have worked very hard for the children of Homedale. We recently opened an accessible playground at Alaco Park, where prior to that the playground was literally condemned. And we've made improvements to many, many of our park facilities. I've been working tirelessly with the Recreation Committee to try to come up with a viable proposal for a turf field. At this point, we do not have such a proposal. We do not have a location that is solidified, and we do not have a total project cost, which is likely to be in the neighborhood of $2.25 to $2.5 million to include the lights and the turf and the parking and the bleachers that are all part of the project. I am opposed on an ethical basis to bonding for something when we don't even know what the project looks like. And I think it's critical that we have a transparent process that engages the entire community and looks at all of our recreation needs. Therefore, I'm a no vote on this amendment, but I do support the original bond.
Mayor Bontempo?
So, we passed a unspecified bond, as Committeeman Santana referenced. 2018 led to 2019, a turf field being put on the consent agenda for 1.2 or whatever $million. So, in my view, I am pro-rec. I originally supported the original turf field project when we did it on Cross Farms, proposed 6 years ago, and which was stopped by petition by the residents. I think that after going through this for a decade, it's got to be done open and transparent manner, right? Because if I'm putting a turf field next to your house, you need to know about it and be aware, because I may change your quality of life. I may change your home value, right? So unspecified bond in my book is a no-go. Put a plan in front. I'll be more than happy to put it on the agenda for public review and discussion, but it's got to be a complete plan that all the residents get to see. The costs, engineering involved, all the aspects of it, and if other people want to see the maintenance of it going forward, the replacement costs. Again, we are fortunate to have some money. We spent $5.5 million or $6 million with fire. We spent $2.5 million on the recreation bond. So we've been investing in recreation and for our children. Don't be mistaken. We did it 3 years ago. We're doing more, but this time it's just a little premature for me to throw on debt that we don't know exactly where it's going to go. And I'm not going to give control of a multi-million-dollar project to a ad hoc rec committee. Their job is to make a recommendation to the township committee, and it's for us to put it forth to the public so everybody gets to see it and comment on it before it's eventually voted on. So I am a no.
Okay, so the motion to increase the bond ordinance by $1.5 million to include future appropriation for turf fields has been it has failed.
So so now you go back to the original.
Yes. So now the motion to adopt on first reading, 2021-32. Roll call is Mr. Critelli?
So this is great. This is a good conversation to have in public. I appreciate everybody's comments. I just want to make one point of clarification. That 2018 $2.5 million rec improvement plan that was funded in 2019, there's still about $700,000 left, and the thought was maybe that would go towards the $1.5 million, and we'd have that $2.25 million. So with that said, I appreciate the mayor saying that if the rec committee comes up with a specific plan, a specific location, he'll put it on the agenda and make it a public conversation, maybe a public forum. We could all look at that. So I'm excited about that, Mayor. So I'm a yes on the capital ordinance.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes. Thank you. I'm also very happy to see what we've been able to discuss tonight. We have to understand that this has been something that's been going on for almost 8 years. Well, 7 years, the turf field conversation, 6? 7 years. So it's something that everyone talks about and says they support, but then nothing gets done. So the thought through this process was to shed light on this, was to maybe hopefully have something, do something about it so that it forces the committee, or not forces, but impels them to act on something that has been bounced around this town for so many years and has been used, and unfortunately, in negative ways, political ways. But it's not political. It's something that the children need. It's something that the community needs, and I think it's a good thing for the community. Another thing that I wanted to say is that I've heard also many comments tonight about it has to be in an open and transparent manner. There is no other way. So it would always be in an open and transparent manner. It would always be done properly, because we've seen what's happened in the past, and nobody wants to ever go through that again. But with that said, I am a yes for the capital improvement project. These things that are in it are paramount to the community, and they will get done.
Mr. Santana?
Just a point of clarification. So when I hear nothing's been done, I just want to make sure that you have the facts. First fact, in 2018, HYAA recommended a list of projects, and we passed, what, $1.5 million bond? 2.5. I'm sorry, 2.5, right, 2.5. Now, HYAA, when they made the request in 2018, asked for the turf in the infield of the baseball fields at Phillips Park. They did not ask, they did not prioritize a multi-use field as being a number one priority on their list. And I question that. If it is so important for our children now, why was it not important 3 years ago? Why did the HYA not tell us? Yeah, sure, if they had told us, and if we had not followed through, then there's a good discussion to have. So that's number one. Number two, they only asked for the turf in the infield, not even the outfield. But we went ahead, because Mr. Committeeman Curtelli was the liaison to the rec committee, who recommended that we extend the turf field. The committee voted to extend the turf to the outfield as well. So saying that we didn't do anything is incorrect. We did what was asked, and we did more, because we extended the turf field. And the fact is that they did not request a multi-use turf field. And it's coming up now. It didn't come up in 2018. So anyway, I'll stop with that, and I'll vote yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
So I'm glad to see we have a unanimous, up to my vote, yes vote. This is an introduction. The meeting I set for is 2 weeks from today at 9 a.m. to pass it, and then we go into our estoppel period. So getting our roads done is going to be very tight, if possible. Administrator, I'm looking at you.
We will do our best.
So you know, it's a month delay in the summertime is big. It's impactful, but you know, hopeful putting this on the agenda again tonight and putting a meeting 2 weeks from today to just pass this ordinance was paramount, because at the end of the day, we got to take care of our roads, infrastructure, and our first responders who take care of our residents. So I am a resounding yes, Wendy.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Bond Ordinance 2021-32 is going to be a special meeting of the Township Committee to be scheduled and noticed for August 24th, 2021 at 9 a.m. The next introduction
Hey,
of...
hold on, Wendy, one question on that.
Yes, sir.
Are we sure we'll have, do we need a supermajority for that? So we need at least 3 people to get a quorum. Did we poll the committee to make sure everyone's available on the 24th?
We certainly
we
can. The
can
meeting
now.
was scheduled, the administrator and I have been working to try and figure out the timeline, because obviously, if this ordinance is, we need 10 days plus advertisement in the newspaper, which basically makes 2 weeks practical, which is the date in question, and then that'll run the 20-day estoppel period on the bond, which gets us exactly to the September 14th meeting. So we really don't have much wiggle room. I'm hoping that that date would be amenable to the committee, but we could
I
certainly...
think we need to know that because we're at a
If committee members are available to call in, they can call in for the meeting.
Oh, call-in's fine.
I think we all have
Call
cell
in.
phones?
Yeah.
We have township authorized cell phones?
It could be one of those record short meetings.
I'll be here.
I happen
Kathy, you okay for the 9 AM?
The two of us will be here.
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
yeah. Better check that.
9 a.m. on the 24th. Kathy?
Yes, I can call in for sure, and I may be able to be there in person.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mike.
So you got a quorum?
We do?
Good.
Okay. So the next ordinance for introduction is 2021-33, which is an ordinance approving entry into host community agreement with Enclave at Homedale Incorporated as to Block 49.02, Lots 40, 40Q, and 41. Motion to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for September 14th, 2021.
There a motion?
Move.
There a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
I'd like to have a discussion on this one as well, Mayor.
Sure.
This one really bothers me, and I'm speaking to the committee because we have discussed this in executive session. We are all supportive of doing this agreement to get some dough from a possible user that wouldn't pay any property taxes. Never, in my recollection, do I believe we discussed the timing of all this. And what bothers me, and Mike, you made a good statement, I understand that, but I think the gentleman in the back, is it Castanings? Is that how you say his name? Mr. Castanings brought up some very good points. As a real estate developer my entire life, there's always a spotlight on the misuse of influence, on how folks can get attention to a project. And there's actually some testimony, and I believe Mr. Santana at the planning board meeting for the Palmer Avenue project, I don't remember the name of it, there was some conversation between yourself and the chairwoman about contributions to politicians. And we know that's against pay-to-play regulations. And this, the fact that we're agreeing to accept money, if it gets approved, is just really bad optics to me. You've got a zoning board that's supposed to is supposed to operate independently from our purview here, yet those people were appointed by mayors and myself in the past. So I don't see, and the other thing the public needs to know is the Enclave, I believe, is going for a use variance. It's not an approved use, what they're proposing up there. So in my mind, they came running to us to try to negotiate a payment in lieu of taxes, hoping that the influence that we would exert on the zoning board. So I personally think it's a mistake to do this. We have pay-to-play ordinances in place in every municipality in the state, including the county and the state government. And this, to me, blurs the line. When we're accepting money or agreeing to accept money if they are approved. When another good point Mr. Castanings made is I think that that property is approved for or can build up to 20 homes as of right. 20 homes at $25,000, maybe $30,000 is $600,000 in revenue to this town. So to accept this agreement tonight, I believe is a misstep. And I'm embarrassed that we would actually put it on the agenda, to tell you the truth. I just don't think the timing is right. I do not believe a Methodist organization would back out of a verbal agreement they had. Now that it's public, it's not verbal anymore. So I'm a hard no to this.
Mr. Lucarelli?
I agree with a lot of Committeeman Critelli just said, and I struggled with this, understanding the timing of this also, and I actually spoke to our attorney today about it because I wanted to understand more about it. Yes, we did speak about this. I was in complete agreement with the attorneys negotiating this deal in good faith, but I didn't understand why it was on the agenda and why it has become public knowledge prior to a zoning board application. It didn't seem right to me. I expressed that. The attorney obviously gave me a very clear explanation on why the timing is what it is, but I don't agree to it. It just doesn't seem right to me. And although I agreed with the amount that we negotiated, and I think that was we did a good job for the community, it doesn't seem right for me with the timing of this ordinance being put on the agenda. So I'm a no.
Mr. Santana?
At this time.
Sorry. Mr. Santana?
You're agreeing to that before we approve this.
Okay. So a couple of things here. So definitely, the timing, as we've all heard, is an issue. I'm not going to deny that. The timing on this is an issue. But I'm on the planning board, and I fought against Barclay Square, and you can go and look it up. So as a member of the Township Committee, well, I'm supposed to support it because they've already decided on this. But I did fight against this, and I said, and I voted no on the Barclay Square project. So I strongly urge the zoning board to be as independent as possible to make sure that if this project is put in front of them, that they remain, that they don't destroy the character of Homedale. That's extremely important, because as the mayor said, what I heard was they're going to keep a working farm, and they're going to build this complex inside that working farm. So I don't know the specifics of it. I haven't seen it, but I will vote yes, provided the zoning board can maintain its independence and make sure that they cross all T's and dot all I's, like I did on the planning board. That's my strong request to the zoning board. Now, in terms of timing, timing is an issue. So I don't know if this could come, I agree, they could have come a bit later, but right now this is in front of us. I like the financial agreement. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. It is a good financial agreement. So I will vote yes with the caveat and a strong request imploring the zoning board to maintain its independence and do the due diligence before you agree to it. Thank you.
So that's a yes.
Voted yes, yes.
Okay.
Ms. Weber?
So, I support the terms of this agreement on the basis of the negotiations that the attorney conducted on our behalf. My question is about if there is an imminent need to approve this tonight, or if we could table it until after the zoning board review. Can you answer that, Mr. Collins, please?
Procedurally, we're in the middle of a roll call vote, so this is a little dicey, but basically the reason why it's being approved now is at the applicant's request. What I would say is that it's up to the committee's discretion on if and when it would want to take any action. Whether or not both parties would agree at a subsequent date is not something I can certainly speak to. And beyond that, this is obviously a negotiation, so I would encourage the committee to go into executive session if you want to discuss it any further.
One other question, is there any risk of losing this if in the event the zoning board votes yes, and we decided to take this up at a later time?
I think we need to go into executive if we don't have any further discussion.
Deputy Mayor, you want to go into exec to get your question answered?
If there's a unanimous consent of the motion and the seconder to withdraw those so we don't have a pending motion, would that be acceptable to the committee?
Yeah, let's withdraw my vote, withdraw the motion altogether right now until post-executive session.
Okay.
You want to do it at the end, or you want to do it now?
I think it would be easier at the end, but
so?
it's up to
We
you.
can do it at the end, so
Okay.
we don't break up the meeting.
All right, so we'll table this
Table
to
that
the
for
end.
now?
To the end, yeah.
For now? Thank you.
Okay, so the next ordinance for introduction is 2021-34, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 30, Development Regulations of the Code of the Township of Homedale. Motion to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for September 14th, 2021.
The motion?
Yes, motion.
Second, roll call?
Mr. Catali?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
2021-34 was successfully passed and will be published in the Asbury Park Press, and the hearing set. Thank you. The next is hearing on ordinances. Ordinance 21-24, amending Chapter 30, Development Regulations of the Code of the Township of Homedale.
Public hearing on 2021-24. Any public comment? None being seen, I'll close public comment. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Catali?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
2021-24 has been successfully passed. Ordinance 2021-25A, prohibiting licensed cannabis establishments to the extent authorized pursuant to PL 2021-C.16.
Any public comment on 2021-25A? None being seen, close public comment. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Catali?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Okay, and next on the agenda is hearings on ordinances for the public questions. Ordinance 2021-26 is authorizing public question to increase the annual collection rate to the Holmdel Township Open Space Recreation Floodplain Protection and Farmland and Historic Preservation Trust Fund.
So we're going to use the monitors in the room right now for a presentation from the administrator.
Tempting to.
We're attempting to use the monitors. Call Jason.
I just had it up. When we started the meeting, it was up and going.
Maybe unplug and plug back in. Sometimes the connection resyncs, John.
That fixes everything. Right? Turn it on, turn it off.
No, you unplug it.
Oh.
Unplugging it. Sometimes it'll get them. That's how I do it. That's how I do
Spend a
work.
lot on IT, and this is,
I know, it is what it is.
it seems like.
Is that you? Is that your screen?
That's not my...
There it is.
Yay. It's fancy. I have just like this one that's up there. Is it...
That one's not on?
Everyone's got to come over here and
Maybe you're timed out? No?
Yeah. Okay. I will try to be brief, but wanted to fill everybody in on kind of where we are with open space and where we're going. So you guys can hear me, actually. So value of open space, I don't think I need to tell people in this room, but the recreational value, the social, as was mentioned earlier today, we saw this especially with COVID. People used our parks, and just the health benefits are obvious. I think that's one thing everybody agrees on. The aesthetic, the beautiful, bucolic nature of our town, the environmental benefits, and just the character of Homedale are part of the reasons why we value it so much. So The Open Space Trust Fund, these are eligible uses. Everyone knows acquisition, recreational improvements, which we often talk about. Maintenance and upkeep, that's an eligible use and really important. Right now, we maintain over 300 acres of parks facilities as of today. We also own additional open space such as De Palma Farm, F&F site. So for each new space that we acquire, a lot of money continues to go into it. Other eligible uses, historic preservation, floodplain protection, and farmland. So our open space history, and I apologize that the type on this is small, it will be on the website for anyone that wants to see. In 1998, we approved, or the township approved the creation of the Open Space Trust Fund. They approved that at a penny per $100 of assessed value. Just 2 years later, the voters increased that to 2.5 cents per $100 of assessed value. And so here we are, 21 years later. As of December 31st, we have collected $15.8 million, a little over $15.8 million, and we have spent pretty much just under $15.8 million. So we've been very active with our Open Space Trust Fund. What have we spent that on? A large portion is our debt service for the lands that we have acquired. Some of it has gone to our maintenance, some has gone to various recreational improvements, and then structural needs throughout our parks. That's where the money has gone so far. Some of the properties that we have acquired since 2000, De Palma Farms, Two Brooks, F&F Nurseries, Callan Farms, and HMF site. I have respective years up here. Some of these sites, we received other funding for them, so whether it was Green Acres funding from the county, whether it was Green Acres funding from the state, partnerships with other agencies, but open space money likely went into all of these. The way our bonds works, it's not necessarily clear how much went to what, but these are open space sites that we have purchased. Our current outstanding debt obligation, we currently have almost $2.5 million in principal, another $400,000 in interest that will retire in 2029. The current assessment, so in 2021, the assessment is 2.5 cents per $100 of assessed value. As I mentioned, that was what was approved back in 2000. So in 2021, we are anticipating raising a little over $1 million into the fund, which is about $175 on the average household. With the proposed referendum, we'd be asking voters to consider increasing that by 1 penny to 3.5 cents per $100 of assessed value, which would, in 2021, the amount we would have collected would be about $1.5 million. This wouldn't go into effect until next year, and so it would be based on next year's assessment. But the average home would be about a $70 annual increase to $245 a year. Future possibilities, what would we do if we collected additional money? So the first and most obvious would be acquisition of high-risk properties. One of the things that we see now, especially as a result of COVID, is people are leaving more urban areas and they want to come into suburban areas. So trying to protect the open space that we do have. I've listed some potential sites that have been discussed as possibilities, larger sites in town. And one of the things that was discussed tonight with Potter's Farm, that was purchased by a third party. They had nothing to do with the township. So these properties look very enticing to potential developers for non-open space purposes. Another use of the funds would be recreational improvements, something else that we have discussed tonight. And I mentioned here the trails and bikeways that have been recommended, playgrounds like the one we just opened last night at Alaco Park, athletic fields, and ADA compliance issues are just some recreational improvements. Historic preservation. We've been contacted by some residents who really have an interest in preserving and restoring the Harding House. That would be a possible use of open space funds. And then farmland preservation, not necessarily open space, but if we have working farms that we want to continue in the town. These are just a list of possibilities. It's by no means exhaustive, but just wanted to let everyone know what we could and potentially would want to use these additional funds for. Just to kind of give everybody an idea of some current vacant listings, this was as of, I think, today or yesterday, of some vacant properties in town, what their asking prices are and how much they are per acre. You know, it can go up to $140,000 per acre in terms of asking price. So we're running low on the amount or the properties that are available to us, and the prices continue to go up. I also want to mention, as I mentioned when I started, some potential partners: the Green Acres Program, the Farmland Preservation Program, the County of Monmouth, the Monmouth County Conservation Foundation, and all of these can be partners in many ways, including financially, but none of these programs will 100% fund any acquisitions or improvements. So timing is always of the essence when you are doing acquisitions, and having the money readily available will make it much more enticing to a potential seller if we do want to acquire space. So I just wanted to give that overview of where we are in terms of open space in the township, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up prior to the vote.
So for those that, from the last meeting, you heard me comment that we've been actively engaged in multiple conversations, multiple properties. It's much more challenging for township acquiring property than I originally anticipated, significantly more. And I could tell you firsthand that every piece of property that we've identified, and probably some we haven't even listed tonight, are being extremely aggressively sought after by developers. Every piece of property. So I made a comment back in February at our planning session. This is probably our last chance to make any impact on the town before developers make the changes that they want, or they're going to try to make changes, which is going to create congestion, overcrowding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So for the town to be able to have more open space, more potential recreation fields, this is, I think, our best opportunity in this year's referendum to let the voters decide if they want the township committee to continue to acquire more open space, as Sharon just presented. Great presentation, Sharon, thank you. You covered everything I wanted covered, as well as the maintenance of some amazing gems like we have, like the Laura Harding House on Baynard Farms. That house was, in its heyday, was pristine. It's now very sad looking because it hasn't been maintained and upkept because we don't have the money to do it. So we have a choice to make, whether we let our valuable properties devalue themselves to a point where they may not be able to be restored, or do we invest in and be able to have it as part of a community and something that we could be proud of and actually run programs there for residents of all ages. So with that, if there's no other questions for Sharon from the Township Committee, open for any public comment on this referendum question. Yes, sir.
Bill Castning, 4 Tocaloosa Drive, and for the record, as a reminder, I'm the Executive Director with Monmouth Conservation Foundation. So, two things that I think have to be mentioned. One is, in order to use public funds, especially Green Acres or any state funds for that matter, you cannot condemn property. This is properties that will be acquired are those properties that are from a willing seller at a fair market value. So I wanted to mention that. And the other point is, it's a question. I know the answer, but I think the public should know the answer. Is this a binding or non-binding resolution, the voter referendum?
It's binding, so if the voters approve it, the tax increase would be approved, and the Township Committee would take the formal actions to implement the increase in the Open Space Trust Fund tax next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any other public comment on this question? None being seen, closed. Public comment, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Critelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Kathy?
Ms. Weber?
Kathy muted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Votes twice.
Okay.
She really
Ordinance
supports.
2021-26 was successfully adopted. The next ordinance is 2021-27, which is authorizing a public question to increase benefits for volunteer first responders pursuant to the Length of Service Award Program, also known as LOSAP.
Any public comment? None being seen, a closed public comment. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Critelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Absolutely.
Ordinance 2021-27 was successfully adopted.
Thank you.
The next ordinance is 2021-28, which is authorizing public question to establish a charter study commission.
Any public comment? None being seen, closed public comment. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Critelli?
So, I just feel like a vast majority of the residents in this town maybe want to know if their people are affiliated with Democratic Party or Republican Party or the Independent Party. So I'm not in favor of this, so I'm a no.
Mr. Lucarelli?
I'm going to vote yes for this because I feel like it's good for the public, but I just want to make it clear I am not in support of this, and I feel like our form of government works very well. I think it's living proof of it sitting up here right now with independents and Republicans and whatever you want to call, but I think it works well. I think it's worked well in the past, and I don't personally agree with this, but I will vote yes in support for the public to be able to speak their mind on that.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-28 was successfully adopted. Thank you.
Do you want me to go to department? Bill, I'll start with you, CFO.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. Have two comments. First, the grace period on the taxes and pilots has been extended to August 20th this year. If you pay after August 20th, your interest will be calculated back to August 1st, though. So make sure you get the payments in by August 20th. Also, we did receive the audit from Somerset. The revenue that Holmdel Township received last year was $1,958,000. There'll be an increase this year by 32.38% to $2,592,000. So it is good news for us.
Thank you, Bill. Anything else?
That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Administrator?
I generally have nothing additional to what's on the agenda, but I did want to point out that earlier tonight you approved the purchase of 2 vehicles for the police department. And I just think it's our police department is impressive, as it always is, but those will be 2 hybrid vehicles. So it's good for the environment. And also, they took the time to make sure that the vehicles will work for their needs, but we're still at the forefront. So I just wanted to point that out. I think that's pretty impressive. Other than that, I have no additional report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great news. Thank you for sharing that, Sean. Counselor?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor. I don't have any specific report, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'd also, if it's okay with you, Mayor, would like to turn it over to our special counsel, Andy Bayer, who represents the township with respect to affordable housing matters. He doesn't know where he's heading, but we're going to find him a
So
seat.
can you sit by, grab your mic, Bill?
And this way he could introduce 3 different action items before the committee relating to affordable housing.
So yes, good to see everyone.
The switch in the bottom, and you'll hold it on if you don't have to keep your finger on it.
Thanks, Mayor.
Good.
Yeah. Good evening. Good to see everyone. It's been a while. Good to see everyone in person, not on the screen. So you have before you tonight a number of action items related to what we've called the Middle Road development in the township's affordable housing plan. By way of very, very brief background, So as part of the township settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center, the town included a 50-unit, 100% affordable housing development on Middle Road, Laurel Avenue. This goes back 2018. The committee also approved a developers agreement with the Walters Group, which is a 100% affordable housing developer who's doing this all over the state, and they've done a very good job so far on your behalf. The township authorized, and we've taken by eminent domain, the property that's located where this project is going to be located. And as a result of the settlement agreement with Fair Share and the court approval of that settlement agreement, most importantly, the township has immunity from builder's remedy litigation through July 2025. But as part of that agreement, the township had to rezone the Middle Road property consistent with the plan that was developed by the Walters Group, which the committee had approved, and you did that. This property is located on the Hazlet border, literally on the Hazlet border. There's homes, single-family homes behind this land where this development would be, and the township of Hazlet filed litigation against our township here, challenging the zoning ordinance. While that was pending, the Walters Group went ahead and appeared before the planning board. The planning board authorized or approved the site plan approval, and they submitted a conforming plan to what the zoning allowed, and the planning board approved it. Hazlet also filed the lawsuit challenging that approval. As part of this project, you'll recall last year when I was before you, or earlier this year, it's all merging together now, but the Walters Group had filed an application also with the State Planning Commission to change the planning area for this site, to change it from a planning area 2 to a planning area 1, and that was because there were development restrictions. This site's regulated by CAFRA, which is a DEP permitting limitation, and so there were coverage limitations associated with a planning area 2. The commission approved the planning area change. Hazlet sued, challenging that as well. So there were 3 Hazlet lawsuits pending against the township here. The state, the New Jersey Mortgage Housing Finance Agency, also provided tax credits to this project, so it's funded. It's only 6 were funded statewide. This was one of them. So this was the commissioner's award of tax credits. So there's substantial state support behind this development as well. So what you have before you tonight are a series of actions which resolve what I'll call the Hazlet litigations. We've been before the court for the last year or so on these cases, and with the some assistance of the court, the attorneys have been in discussions, and what we ultimately, so you have a settlement agreement before you tonight, and the settlement agreement will result in the dismissal of those 3 lawsuits that I mentioned. It will, and there has been as a result of that, there's been a redesign of the project. It's an exhibit to the settlement agreement, and basically what all this allowed was it allowed to move the buildings and parking lots and other impervious coverage back away from the homes on the Hazlet border. With the planning area change, we were able to go back as far as, depending on the building, 100 feet from the border. Some at the time, the parking lot at the time of the initial approval was within 5 feet of the border because of the planning area designations. So in essence, what it results in the settlement is a redesign. The number of units stays the same, 50 units, so we'll get 100 affordable housing credits towards our overall obligation, which is what we need from the affordable housing perspective. So that is the gist of the settlement. So you have a resolution before you approving the settlement agreement with Hazlitt. And what would happen if Hazlitt has already adopted a resolution approving this settlement agreement, so they have, stepped forward, so we know that they're going to go ahead. The planning board is also a party. As I mentioned, there was a challenge to the planning board's actions, and these cases have been consolidated, so the planning board will have to take action to approve this agreement as well. I think that's scheduled whenever the planning board next meets in the next few weeks. Next week, Committeeman Santana would know that, but yeah. So I think that would be on the planning board's agenda. So if the planning board votes yes, then we have a complete settlement agreement. The litigation will be dismissed. One of the things that the litigation or the settlement requires is that the Homedale revise the zoning ordinance to match what is now the new concept plan that sets the standards, again, further back from the Hazlitt border. So one of the other items you have, so I figured since we're approving a settlement agreement, we might as well get the ordinance going. So it's on the same topic. So what you have before you tonight as well is an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for this development, which incorporates the standards that are specifically actually set forth in the settlement agreement. So there's been, and our planner, the township's planner here, had reviewed these. When these discussions were going on, we got input from her in terms of these changes, and she actually drafted the ordinance, incorporating these standards. So from a planning perspective, we're good as well. So that's the ordinance. And lastly, our developer, the Walters Group, has obtained DEP, did a wetlands delineation of the site, and also what's required from a flood hazard permitting standpoint from DEP. So you have before you tonight a resolution authorizing Sharon to sign those. So the DEP findings have been issued, and now it requires that they be recorded with the clerk in freehold, so that they're a matter of record on the property. And so the developer has asked the township through Sharon to sign those permits. So you'd be adopting a resolution authorizing Sharon to sign those, and then if there's any other environmental permitting or other outside agency approvals that are required of the township through the development process, subject to me, Mike Collins' review, and obviously Sharon's, you'd be authorizing her to do that in the future, so we wouldn't be burdening, the committee with every minor step in this development process. So those are the three items.
So Andy, can we do this in one motion for all three actions, or we got to do them separately?
Do the resolutions together?
No, we could
You
do
could do the two resolutions together, and then the ordinance.
And introduce the ordinance.
You have to introduce the ordinance and have a public hearing.
So a motion for 13.11 and 13.12?
Motion.
Which is 2021-28 and 2021-29.
Technically, you're correct.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Gertelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Okay. So 2021-28 and 2021-29 have been successfully passed.
You want to read
Sure.
2021-35?
And 2021-35 is an ordinance for introduction, which is amending Article 5 entitled Zoning, Chapter 30, Development Regulations, Sections 31 to 135A, entitled AF-MF2, Affordable Housing, Multifamily, Zone 2. Motion to adopt on the first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for September 14th, 2021.
The motion.
Move.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Gertelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
2021-35 will be set for public hearing.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, everyone. Nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you.
Good night.
Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing to report tonight. Earlier in the agenda, you approved the award of the contract for Crawford's Corner Road Phase 6. This is utilizing your 2021 DOT grant. And this will be the final phase of Crawford's Corner Road, so we'll complete the project all the way to Red Hill Road.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Updates, boards and committees. Committeeman Critelli.
I think I've had enough to say tonight. No report, Mayor.
Committeeman Lucarelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't able to attend the ribbon cutting at Alachua Park last night, but I know it was well received, and I just wanted to give a little shout out to the DPW. I know they did a lot of work there, dismantling and reassembling the park. And I'm also very happy to hear Bill tell us tonight at with the assessment on the pilot funds how we're not going to have to hear anymore how we may have to pay money back. So I'm really happy about that. Thank you. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Committeeman Santana.
I don't have a whole lot other than to say that when I did attend the local park ceremony, and it was good, and good to know that we're doing a lot of recreational improvements for everyone. So happy to see that happen. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, do you have any updates?
Yes, just want to thank the Township Administrator and her team. Oh, hold on a second, I got feedback. Okay. I just want to thank the Township Administrator and her team for publicizing the news that the TABS Committee alerted us to of the new law signed by Governor Murphy that requires drivers to move over or slow down for bikers and pedestrians. We have had numerous accidents and indeed fatalities in Homedale in the past year, and so thanks to them for doing a public relations campaign and getting the word out to help keep all of our residents safe and encourage drivers to be aware of this new law. And then I'm looking forward to speaking with the consultants in terms of the swim club recommendations and renovations. I don't know if everyone is aware, but the swim club main pool was actually closed one day this week pending repairs to the pool. So that main pool is being held together literally with baling wire and bubble gum. And I'm looking forward to a comprehensive report on what we need to do to maintain that facility. Its usage this year is the highest it's been in ages, and people are really enjoying having it. And with the heat wave in the next few days, I'm sure there will be a good crowd. And I look forward to continuing to work with the Recreation Advisory Committee on the proposals that we've been working on towards options for a turf field. That's it.
Thank you. I have a couple of things, and I saw some of the first aid people that were here that left. I know there's one in the audience. Thank you. I would like to say that I received a almost kind of dovetailing on what the deputy mayor just said. I received an email from a gentleman who was driving his bike in Homedale, and he was struck by a motor vehicle not that long ago. And his email was to say that the response he received from our police and first aid was better than he could ever imagined. He said that he was going in and out of consciousness. The police officers on the scene helped him until the first aid got there. And through his, whatever operations he had, he was out of the hospital. And he said that probably what kept him to survive was the response that he got from our first responders in town. So I wanted to publicly share that with you. And the resident was not from Homedale. He was from another town in Monmouth County. Just happened to be riding his bike to Homedale because he wanted to kind of take in the great parks in the area where, unfortunately, he was struck by a vehicle. So I think that some of the work that the deputy mayor is doing on the tabs of traffic and bike safety and the grants we put in for the bike paths in town are more important than ever. because this gentleman was lucky, and next time he may not be that lucky. So having that is important. And it meant a lot to me for someone to take the time, just getting out of the hospital, to send me that note, to thank the people that took care of him. Some people would have forgotten and moved on with their life. He didn't. So, Dimitri, share with your folks, really job, you guys do day in, day out, an amazing job. And helping people like that is really, I couldn't ask for more. I'm so proud to be up here with you guys representing, us in the town. Thank you. So we're going to be holding here at Town Hall our September 11th memorial on September 10th in the evening. So September 11th falls on a Saturday. We're going to do it on a Friday evening at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. So information will be posted on our website. Information will be going out soon. Please, if you put that on your calendar, we have put a lot of effort into representing properly all the people that are on names on the monument in front of us here at Town Hall. That's all I have for updates for tonight. I will now open up to any public comment. Yes, sir.
Ron Emma, 32 Ladwood Drive. I understand there was a fire recently on South Beer Street that involved a landscape truck that rolled into the fire truck that responded, and the fire truck caught on fire and apparently had to be towed away. So my question is, how much damage was there? When is the truck going to be back in service? Does it pose a threat that we don't have that truck in service? And I assume insurance is going to pay for that. So really just an update on what happened and when it's going to be fixed. Thank you.
I'll answer in reverse. Yes, insurance will cover it minus our deductible. We are in the process of getting quotes. It does appear that we can make the repair. Obviously, that is a fire truck that we use. So not having it hurts, but we do have backups. I think I answered that. Did I forget one of the questions?
I think you got it.
So we're actively working on it, and hopefully we'll get it back in service as soon as possible. I mean, we have other vehicles that we can use if we need to.
On National Night Out here at Town Hall last Tuesday? Tuesday. I was speaking to Patrolman Darcy, who was a liaison to fire, and he told me that the new truck is going up to get some of the equipment that is ready for it to be loaded on the truck. So they're making progress, and they're very excited to start getting some of the equipment. I know the hoses that they've been waiting for. So we're going to be close to having the new one very fully outfitted. He told me in the very near future. As a second comment, I know you didn't ask that, but I thought it was important to share that publicly. Anything else from the public? Yes.
Francine Campus, 2 Country Squire Lane. I'll start out on a positive note. Thank you for passing that capital bond ordinance. It makes me very happy because a lot of the items in there have been going on for a long time, similar to the turf field, fire safety, and etc. But I'd like a question on what's the update on getting property on the ROTC inventory? We had talked about that a few meetings before, and I guess I'm a little bit concerned about what's the status of that. Thank you.
I think we were waiting to hear back from the county on the potential swap of land, so there's not active motion on the Rossi at this point.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing to report on, I apologize, it was under the 5 pounds of paper I have up here. Just want to give a quick update on the library. We've made some progress when improving the partnership between the township and the Holmdel branch at the Monmouth County Library System. 2 weeks ago, the township administrator, myself, met with the library branch manager, the director of Monmouth County Library System, and 2 library commissioners, had a lengthy, productive discussion about our concerns. Specifically, we asked about the library hours of operation, increasing the programming and offerings at the Holmdel branch, and ways to improve communication and share information. The staff was very receptive to all of our concerns and agreed to take steps immediately to increase the library operating hours and make the schedule more consistent from day to day. They also agreed to work with the township to recruit a variety of speakers, experts, even performers to present programs and events at the Homedale branch. Township staff has scheduled a meeting for later this week to discuss the creation of a maker space at the Homedale branch, making recommendations for improved technology for our library patrons. In terms of improving communication, the library staff and the township agreed to meet on a quarterly basis to raise concerns, make suggestions, and check in on the progress of all agenda items from our first meeting. I am pleased with the progress that has already been made since our last township committee meeting. I look forward to continuing this with the county. So I could tell you that this was a huge step forward, because when we were in the basement here, the library for years, as many of you were aware, they amended the hours on Mondays and Wednesdays. Do you know why? Because of court. When they moved to Bell Works, they kept the same hours, like there was court in their way. So we're redoing the schedule in order to give residents kind of, not, 8 to 5, 9 to 5 access. There's going to be some late evenings, a little expanded on the weekends for Saturday longer hours. So we're very happy for that, and very happy to be able to utilize the space in there for guest lecturers, authors, even artists to come and talk, read chapters of the book, and really getting the community more involved. We have a great space. In the library, if the library was in the basement, I wouldn't be pushing this, but the space we have is second to none. So we're very excited, and we commitment is that we're going to get one, call it, for lack of a better term, marquee attraction every quarter. So something big, like someone who just wrote a book just coming out, New York Times bestseller. As they get the circuit and these guys have access to the circuit speakers, they're going to be able to start scheduling things in advance. And we will communicate that out here at Town Hall. We'll update in our newsletters and share the information so people that want to attend can also be able to attend, sessions like that. So I think it'll be nice. I think it'll bring more people from the community into our great library over there at Bell Works, Bell Works is just humming and humming right now, which is great. So being in there, I think, is a win-win. So I just want to provide that update on the library. Any other public? Yes, come on.
Karen Strickland, 26 Haley Hills.
You could take the microphone up. It's easier, Karen.
Well done on the library. That's really cool. When we, 4 years ago, when I was taking my daughter around to look at colleges, all the colleges talked about maker spaces, and I never even heard of them. And so now, we updated Homedale High School to have them, and now this is really good. This is a great thing you're doing for our kids, so great job. Mr. Curatelli, really appreciated your very thoughtful comments on the appearance of things for the, the Potters. Very well said. I really appreciate what you said, and I like it. And it brought to mind the idea of symbolism, because I still am very upset about our human relations report, and that we allow that blue line to stay there in town. And I was looking at our support, or the public question for the volunteer first responders. This is the way we support our first responders and our police. We give them the money that they need. We give them the thank you for their long-time service. We don't put lines in our street that are of ambiguous meaning, that for some people maybe they do mean support the police, but for many people outside our community, in our community, and outside our community, it doesn't. And I hate that blue line and what it represents to me now. I really appreciate supporting the Length of Service Awards for our volunteers, because they need it. And we need to, this is the way we support them, not ambiguous symbols. And then also, thank you for the open space. We need to support that too. So basically, good job.
Thank you. Yeah, Miss.
Jananisi, 7 Country Squire Lane, Homedale.
First, yes, I was very happy with what you said, Mr. Catelli, about the enclave, because when I heard about it and I read about it, that was the very first, well, I had many questions. One was, why now? Why are you voting on it now? The other one was, I heard it was 15 buildings, 101 units, and when you come off the parkway, that's the first thing you see are those sheep and those cows. It just seemed wrong. And I'm very much a rule person. If there are laws or there are rules, then you should follow them. If you don't like the rules or your laws, then you change them. So to me, that holds true for zoning laws, zoning things. We have zoning laws, and yet there are millions of variances, it seems like. There's variances for almost everything, land use variance, all kinds of stuff. But anyway, I'm very glad that you tabled it. Very happy to hear about the library. I'm glad that that's working out. One thing I wanted to comment was about the turf field. I've been around a long time. I've been coming to these meetings often for the last 5-6 years. And what I don't understand is that there was a survey, and there was a really big to-do about that survey, that it went to every single family, every single unit, housing unit in Homedale. And then the responses came in, and everything was done above board, and it was statistically significant. And they hired, I think, a statistician to do some of that work. And I was frankly surprised at the results, but they are the results, and they weren't binding, which is true. But if that really does reflect the town, Mr. Catelli, you had said, actually, I think it was Mr. Lucarelli, you said it's needed, and you're saying for the kids, but the families of these children had ample opportunity with that survey to respond. And if they had responded that they wanted a turf field or they wanted more recreation facilities for sports, that would have been on the survey. So why did we have that survey? Why did we spend, I think it was $25,000, $30,000, I don't know, something like that. Why do we spend that money? And I mean, I'm glad that we did seem to address some of those issues, as you pointed out and Kathy pointed out. But I'm not really against the turf field, but I think I agree with some of the people who spoke earlier. It almost seemed to me like the squeaky wheel gets oiled. I mean, I don't see the majority of people wanting a turf field. At this point, I don't have children in the system. I did before, but that doesn't matter. I was very involved in sports. But I personally don't see the need. Now, if people could show the need, then maybe there would be more of a response for it. I mean, I'm willing to fund it if everyone else is, but I don't really understand it. Mr. Hines is really a great proponent of this turf field, and I admire his excitement. But I just don't understand why we're still discussing this.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public? Yes, sir.
I guess you're supposed to hold this. Bill Little, 8 Coventry Square. Your story about the bicyclist reminded me of a pet peeve of mine, so this is just sort of a personal thing. A month or two ago, a former NBA player was hit by a car and paralyzed, and it got reported in the press as a bike accident. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention so that you think about these things correctly and they get represented correctly, because they're often misrepresented in the media. Because, you know, a bike accident is when you stub your toe and lose your balance. These people are hit by a car. You know, it's important to get that, you know, covered correctly and stated correctly. So as somebody who rides his bike a lot in Monmouth County and in Homedale, it's very, you know, it means a lot to me to, you know, call it what it is. So thanks.
And Bill, I could tell you that he also shared with me that after he was in the hospital, the police that responded and the first aid went to visit him just to see how he was doing, because there was nobody else there, right? His family wasn't been contacted. It's, you know, and it was just very well written and very articulate, and I just wanted to share that publicly because our guys, and Dimitri knows because he does every day, you know, do an amazing job taking care of everybody, no matter where they are, no matter what happens. And I thought it was just important to share because these guys, that's one of the reasons why the LoSAP is on on the referendum for November. I hope we get a great turnout. I hope we overwhelmingly support that for our first responders because they deserve it. Anybody else in public?
Good evening, folks. Terrence Wall, 170 La Quinta Court in Homedale. Appreciate your time today. Thank you for your service to the community. It's a lot of work to serve on a township committee. I did it for 9 years, so I appreciate what you're doing. A couple quick items, then I'll get to the reason I came today. One is LoSAP. I served on the First Aid Squad. Great idea, fully support it. Open space tax, which will tie into my comments in a moment. Wonderful idea to fully fund that and to help increase open space and development. I served as charter chairman of the Open Space Advisory Committee a number of years ago. I was very proud with my peers, both Republicans and Democrats, to preserve the Chase Track, to preserve De Palma Farms, to preserve F&F Nurseries, not just to talk about it, but to actually vote on it, and also what's now known as Veterans Park, which is Phillips Park, and that was also at risk as well at one time. So very proud. I think that's about 1,000 acres of open space. I'm here today to, I heard the meeting in the car a little bit, and I wanted to share an opinion and also some history for the folks that are not familiar. The Potter Farm and the Potter family, they are the heart and soul of Homedale and the Middletown communities, both, for many, many, many decades. So for the folks that just got to town, welcome. For the folks that have been here a little while, you really want to focus on the history of the town and respect the folks who made Homedale great. And the Potter family is one of those families who made Homedale great and Middletown great. For many, many years, and I grew up in Country Woods behind the Potter family, who I love very much. They're wonderful folks. I didn't know that they were going to be here today. I think that parallel to the efforts, whatever they may be with the zoning board or what the township committee is looking at, I do think you've got your issue totally out of order. You're coloring the judgment of the zoning board. You're predetermining your intentions to the zoning board, and you're frankly jeopardizing that application in certain respects. I strongly suggest you get a second learned legal opinion from someone who focuses on land use specifically to let you know if you're coloring that application. While that process is going on, and by the way, I was really disappointed and saddened to hear Committeeman Santana say that he never saw the application, yet he's comfortable with the $95,000 figure. I'd really like to know where the calculations come from to get to $95,000 for a pilot, which, by the way, leaves the school board and the school district out of it. I'm speaking only as a personally, individually. How do you make calculations when you haven't looked at a plan? That's very troubling. And Country Woods is now subject to the same sewer wars. Who replaced the septic? Who doesn't want to replace it? I've been there, I live there, I grew up there. You're putting those folks back into a fight running that sewer line. However, if it's approved, so be it. But if it is not, please be respectful to the family and get yourself a full market value and pay the family their rate on that property. I can tell you that with appraisals, and I'll be very brief, there are overappraised values that properties are being preserved at. You can get very creative. And in the last sentence, Mayor, if you don't mind, my suggestion would be, as a concept, is a multi-jurisdictional preservation program that partners with Brookdale Community College and other related colleges to have a farmland program, an education curriculum that uses funds from different sources for a preservation project that would be, frankly, wonderful. And I've been talking about it for years. But the family should be respected in all your dealings, and please have things in the right order. Thank you.
So thank you for the comment. I'm not sure that you heard the earlier synopsis by council, but the property is now owned by a third party, United Methodist Church Communities Church, non-for-profit. So they are the current owners of the property, and they have a right under the law to put any application forward that they seem fit and go through whatever the process is. We'll go into executive session after this, but
Yeah, I would recommend at this stage that we refrain from any further comments. With respect to the land use application, I think the discussion on the ordinance has been had, but I wouldn't go beyond that at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? You only go what? You guys go yet in? Okay, come on, I'm sorry.
Jay and 18 Ladwood Drive. So at the risk of Mr. Collins cutting me off, Mr. Critelli, your point on the enclave, give me a second, was
I can't gag you. I can gag, not gag, but
No,
recommend the committee
and I'm
not
not
say
trying to be
anything.
cute. I'm curious here. Since it was already sold, the Potter sold this to these people, and you're not happy with this potential amount, or you would like, maybe if this didn't work out at the zoning board, we could build another facility there. I mean, well, you said we could put theoretically 20 houses there at 25, 30,000. So I'm just wondering how. Yeah. Yeah, but how do we get there if it's already been sold to these people? In other words, ultimately, if it didn't work out for them, or you're saying.
No, I think, you know what we should do, Jay?
Yeah.
We should look at it for open space preservation.
Committeeman, we got.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but
please.
hasn't it been sold already? Or you're saying if it didn't work out?
No, why not approach the owners now? It's not the Potters, it's the...
Approach the enclave.
Yeah, please, don't,
Okay.
we'll go
Yeah,
into
just curious
exec.
what you were thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
And Mr. Santana, you get beat up left and right. Mr. Lucarelli, you put a cute dig on him, and actually you were right about, we're making more money than we were. I'm
happy.
I'm saying it was fair. It was a fair little. But Mr. Santana, I think overall, I am floored, and I've heard other people muttering at how articulate you are and how on point you are with numbers. And if and when we move forward with this turf field, I would encourage you to keep it all bright, clear, and the numbers in the publications the town puts out. We need to see, as taxpayers, this conversion of short-term debt to we need to know it. People need to know it. This way, the anti-turf people really know the real numbers. So thank you for what you're doing, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Bill Castning, 4 Takalusa Drive. Last time I talked about monarch butterflies. This time I'll talk about bicycles. I don't know whether many of you know, you have a very famous bicyclist living in your town. His name is Edgar Badan. Anybody heard of him?
No.
He is a 95-year-old bicyclist who continues to bike 30, 40 miles a day from Homedale to Sandy Hook and back. And he is a man to be admired. And for those of you who receive Monmouth Conservation Foundation's monthly newsletter, there's an article about him, and his granddaughter bought a bike rack in Seabright in a park that we're helping to complete there, and that's how we found out about this gentleman. And he came to my house for a visit with his granddaughter, and the guy is truly amazing, and I suggest you contact him. And his daughter's name is a long Greek last name, so I can't pronounce it. I'm not a granddaughter. I'm not going to tell you, but I can email it to you. Somebody's looking behind me here.
I think Dimitri has it.
That's my daughter. Okay. Right. So you know this guy, but you don't know about his father-in-law. I suggest you learn about him. That guy's truly amazing.
Thank you, Bill. That's amazing. 40, that's amazing. Anybody else from the public? I'm going to close public comment. We are going to now go into executive session. We are not going to take any action. No, not tonight.
Yes, we're not taking action tonight.
So the public can rest assured that the committee won't be coming back out into public for any actions. Would there be a motion to go into closed session on that basis?
Have a motion?
And this is for contract negotiation.
Move. Second.
I'm wondering if we're not taking action, why aren't we just going to move this to the next executive session in September? I don't understand why we have to stay and debate this further. Maybe we need to reflect on it on our own.
I have a very important question I don't want to discuss here.
Okay, so we're going to go into
Let's
executive.
go into exec, where we'll not come out, and then no public action will be taken this evening. If there is some, it can be carried on another agenda. which will be public before the meeting. Correct?
Is there a motion?
Do we have a motion?
There's a motion in a second.
In a second, you need a roll call?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kathy will call you.
Okay.
Stay by your phone.
You want to stay here, or you want to go upstairs? You want to go upstairs or stay here?
We've stayed here before.